today we will see storage service, okay, from AWS. So just click on the left top corner of AWS console, and below we have services listed out. So the last we have a storage service. So let's click on a storage service, and inside this we have different storage options or solutions which are available, like AWS backup, elastic file systems, elastic disaster recovery, FSX, S3 Glacier, and storage gateway. Now in which we will see the storage service called as S3, which is called as a simple storage service, which is just nothing but a scalable storage in the cloud. So let me click on S3. Now S3 is an object based storage actually, and if you could scroll down, so you can see, so you can store and retrieve any amount of data from anywhere, okay. And we have a particular, let's see, a video also, just to see, okay, what are the use cases, okay, for the S3 storage. And this is also listed out here, so, and there are certain case studies also, okay. Now there is options called as a create bucket. So inside an S3 we supposed to create a bucket, okay. Now nowadays S3 is having a different types of buckets to be created, okay. Like there is a general purpose bucket, so normal buckets that we store the data inside, okay, using objects. And then there are directory buckets, table buckets. So there are different purposes, we can say, of having a different kinds of buckets. So today we will go with the general purpose buckets, and inside a general purpose buckets we'll can see that, so there are no buckets actually. Now S3 is a regional service, you can say, so because we need to opt for a region. And let's click on create bucket. Okay, now here I will create a bucket. So now this bucket name is a universal global name across AWS environment. So I'll say my S3, okay, static website bucket, let's say. So just give a name, okay. Fine, so I can copy the settings from an existing bucket if it is there, but I don't have as such. So there are some object ownership, like there will be a contents inside a bucket which is called as objects. So now how you can control, okay, it's ownerships, that settings we can apply it here. So I'll be going with the default one presently. So there is a block public access. So by default the bucket that we will be creating is nothing but a private bucket. So by default it's private. There is a versioning, so there is a encryption also is there, so that you can put your objects, okay, using encryptions also with the help of a key services, right? And there are certain advanced settings also. So I'll just create a bucket with the simple name provided. So we got an error, so requested bucket name is not available actually. So let's change the bucket name. So my S3, let's see, demo static bucket. Let's see whether this name is available. Yes, now this bucket is created. Now let me see the buckets inside a general purpose buckets. Okay, here you can see this bucket. I can get inside this bucket and I can see all the options which are there. Like there is options called as properties, then there is options called as permissions, metrics, management of the bucket, access, and then there is an access points as well, right? Okay, so let's go to the object part. Now here I'll be uploading certain contents, okay, inside a bucket. So let me upload one image, okay. So I'll choose my console access to add the files. So I have a one S3 static website bucket. So I'll be uploading one image of tiger. So let me upload an image. Fine. Okay, now the object is uploaded. Fine. So now let's go to this object which is uploaded. Okay, and here you can see the information. Now this is what a object URL, which is a public URL, I can say. So let me click on this URL. So but it is saying that access denied. Access this bucket is private, so we cannot access the buckets also publicly. Right now we need to change the settings of this bucket to be public so that I can access this particular. Okay, so we have to use this object URL inside one HTML file so that if I run a particular website URL of inside an S3 bucket, so it should also visualize this particular object. So I need to make this object or a bucket public to have it. Now let's go to the bucket and let's go to the permission tab. Now inside the permissions tab, first we need to untick the block public access settings. So I wanted to make this bucket okay, or certain objects inside in it as a public. I'll say save it. So I'll say confirm. Okay, now to make a bucket public, so there is called as bucket policy. So now there are two types of policies. One is identity based policies, one is a resource based policies. Identity based policies we apply to the users or principals, but there are certain policies which is called as a resource, where the policies can also be applied to the resources like AWS services, in which S3 bucket is also one of the example. Now let's click on edit the policy. Now we would like to make this bucket public, so we have to create a policy. Now you can get this S3 bucket public policy okay, from any documentations, but if you want you can go to the policy generated to create a policy as per your need. Okay, now this is what a policy generated, so I can select S3 bucket. Okay, now I'll say principals, means anyone would like to access an AWS S3 service, and inside that actions I'll say all. So I want, okay, even I can say a get object also actually, but I can say all, and then ERN number is nothing but the bucket ERN. And I'll put inside a bucket ERN, and inside a bucket there are other objects also which I wanted to make it public. So now the statement is generated. Now let's click on a generate policy. Now this is what a statement has been generated. I'll just copy this statement and I'll put it inside a bucket policy with the form of JSON. I'll say save it. In case of any error inside a JSON statements, it will give an error that this particular JSON is not valid. Okay, now we have made the settings that this bucket is nothing but a getting public. Now let me click on a tiger and let me copy this URL and let me put it inside a browser. So let's check. Yes, now we can see the image which is having a public URL. Okay, now let's copy this URL. So this URL has been copied. Now I'll go to the index.html file where I'll put this URL. Okay, and it should be visualized inside a bucket. Now let me go. So I'll say I'll go to the terminal. Now this is what my terminal is. I'll say C desktop. So on a desktops I have folder called as cloud, and inside the clouds I have folder called as S3 static bucket, and inside that I am having called as index.html file. So I'll modify this index.html file, and then I'll go to okay for uploading. So nano index.html. Fine. So here I have a little bit snippet of HTML code. So I'll go to my URL. Of a bucket object. I'll paste. Fine. And here I'll say, actually I made this HTML file for a CloudFront demo, but which is another way of accessing okay latency sensitive application. So I'll say welcome to my static website, okay, on S3. I'll say S3. Okay, so fine, I'll say Control O for write outs and Control X for it. Okay, now index.html file is modified with some object URL. Now let me go to the bucket, and inside the buckets I'll upload these objects. uh, add files. I have two files, one is index.html, just we have modified it, and one more file, just an error file, which is in case of there is a URL miss, I can. Okay, so these are the three objects we have uploaded, uh, which is index.html and error.html, and there is a one image. Okay, now this is what a bucket we are having. Now we'll go to the properties. Now inside of properties we have one property called as making this bucket as a static website hosting. I'll click on edit and I'll have to enable this. Okay, now host a static website. So yes, which document it should run when we run as we supposed to run a URL index.html, and in case of any error there has to be some error.html document code should be published, and that's fine. This is what a change we wanted to have it. I'll say save it. Okay, now once I save it, I'll be on the properties, and there is one URL of the website which is getting generated. Now let's copy this URL and close all the tabs and go to the new tab and paste this URL, and if I hit I should be able to get a my page, which is my HTML file. So welcome to my static website on S3. If I little bit change something, okay, so like inside an URL, let's see, login something, then see I should be able to get some error in URL, you can see after the complete URL. So this is what we can make our S3 bucket, okay, where we can host our static website also, where we can host all the objects as a files like images, pictures, audio, videos, and we can display it on, okay, with the help of HTML file. Okay, so that's it about S3 bucket, making it as a static website. Thank you.